Welcome to the Rummage Report for April 9th, 2026. Today's topic is U.S.-Iran ceasefire shaky amid strikes. Casey Liberty kicks us off today.
Hey guys, I just read about the US-Iran ceasefire that President Trump announced on April 7th. It sounds like a big deal, but honestly, it feels pretty shaky right now. Both sides are throwing accusations around, and there are still tensions in the Strait of Hormuz, which is crucial because it handles about 20% of the world's oil supply. If that gets interrupted, we could see gas prices spike again, and that hits all of us in our wallets, especially the small business owners and families trying to make ends meet. Trump's approach has been to use strong language and brinkmanship to get Iran to the table. But I worry about the long-term implications. If Iran's proxies, like Hezbollah, start causing trouble again, it could lead to more instability in the region and even affect American jobs back home first. Plus, the ceasefire's terms are still up in the air, and if Iran doesn't stick to its end, we could be back to square one in no time. What do you guys think? Am I off base here?
Casey, you're spot on about the potential for gas prices to spike again if tensions escalate. When the Strait of Hormuz is involved, we're looking at a direct impact on energy costs, which affects everything from groceries to transportation. However, I think the ceasefire's shaky nature isn't just about strong language. It's also about the lack of clarity in the terms. If Iran's proxies continue to provoke, it undermines the whole deal, and that unpredictability can hurt job stability in industries reliant on oil and trade. We need to keep a close eye on how this plays out, especially for working families trying to balance their budgets amidst rising costs.
Casey, you're absolutely right to be concerned about the instability in the Strait of Hormuz and its impact on gas prices. It's a direct hit to family budgets and small businesses. However, I think we need to dig deeper into what this ceasefire really means. The fact that both sides are accusing each other of violations already puts us on shaky ground. If this escalates, it could lead to job losses, especially in the energy sector, as companies react to the unpredictability of oil prices. We can't ignore that the longer this conflict drags on, the more it diverts funds from critical areas like healthcare and education right here at home. That's what we should be focusing on, not just the immediate fallout, but the longer-term implications for working families.
Jordan, you're right to highlight the long-term implications for healthcare and education funding if this conflict drags on. However, I think we should be careful about assuming that the ceasefire is a path to stability. The terms are still very unclear, and if Iran's proxies start causing trouble again, we could see an escalation that disrupts not just energy prices, but also impacts job security across various sectors, especially in manufacturing and logistics, which rely heavily on stable oil prices. Families in Ohio are already struggling with rising costs, and we can't afford to let this situation distract from the real issues at home.
Casey, you nailed it when you mentioned the potential for job instability if Iran's proxies start causing trouble again. It's not just about gas prices. This conflict could ripple out to affect manufacturing and logistics, where many Ohioans work. But Jordan, I think you're right to underscore the longer-term implications for healthcare and education. If this conflict escalates, it could pull funding away from those critical areas. The choice to focus on military engagements over domestic needs could mean fewer resources for local schools and healthcare systems, which directly impacts families trying to get by. We need to balance our foreign policy with what's happening back home.
Casey, you're absolutely right about the potential for instability and its impact on job security, especially in manufacturing and logistics. But we also need to consider how this conflict pulls resources away from vital domestic needs like healthcare and education. The longer we stay engaged in these military postures, the more funding gets diverted from programs that support working families. For example, if oil prices spike, it could increase healthcare costs and strain budgets for local schools, which directly affects kids in Ohio. This isn't just about gas prices, it's about the broader implications for our communities and the real lives at stake.
The conversation. Casey, Sam, and Jordan discussed the implications of the US Iran ceasefire and its potential instability. They all agreed on the immediate concern of rising gas prices and how that could impact families and small businesses. However, they disagreed on the focus of the conversation. Casey and Sam were more concerned about the direct economic ramifications of the ceasefire's shakiness, particularly in terms of job security in sectors reliant on stable oil prices. In contrast, Jordan emphasized the long-term implications, arguing that military conflicts divert resources from critical domestic needs like healthcare and education, which could have more profound effects on communities. Worth thinking about. 1. If escalating tensions lead to increased military spending, how should we prioritize funding for domestic programs like education and healthcare versus foreign military engagements? 2. Should the U.S. negotiate with Iran to ease sanctions even if it means compromising on certain principles, especially if it could stabilize the economy and reduce gas prices? 3. If a direct conflict with Iran were to disrupt oil supply chains, what measures should be taken to ensure that vulnerable communities receive adequate support without sacrificing long-term investments in social programs? If you asked me, and remember, I'm a raccoon, I'd say let's not forget to rummage through the trash for those long-term solutions while we deal with the immediate mess.